Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Series 6 of Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours aims to record 200 loiners, that's people from Leeds, over the first half of the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and tell me about what they do all day and let me record how this decade affects us. Thank you for listening to this episode. What did you want to be when you grew up?
So, when I was little, I thought I was destined for the stage and screen. So I was fascinated with musicals, and I always wanted to be in the school play, and I thought that I was like really talented, as you do when you're a child. And all my family members nodded and said, yeah. Went through high school, did a performing arts degree, got to university to do performing arts, and then realised I absolutely hated it because I'm not actually an extrovert, which is what everybody assumed I was, because I was chatty and curious and really interested in what everybody had to say, and wanted to be, or appeared to want to be, centre stage. But I think that was me just trying to fit in and feel useful. So when I got to university, I suddenly realised that I hate being the centre of attention, and I actually prefer the behind the stage stuff. So I prefer the organising people, team working, encouraging people to be themselves on stage, not the being on stage absolutely useless at learning lines. No surprise there. So I went from thinking I wanted to be an actress, putting all the work in, doing all right in my A levels, but pretty much halfway through my degree realised that I would get some benefit from that degree, but not from being on the stage. It just was not for me.
You're listening to Series 6, Episode 35, and to my guest, Gill Beadle. This is another Squadcast recorded on the 31st of October, 2025. Hello, colleague. This is the penultimate episode of Series 6. Series 7 will be starting in March. Listen, share, follow, review, donate, and if you want to guest on this show, there's still half a dozen free places left for loiners to grab. Gill Beadle is an ILM7 certified executive and leadership coach with 2 decades worth of experience in technology and change leadership within health tech and financial services. Gill decided to become a coach after seeing firsthand the impact coaching had when working with her teams, as well as on her own confidence as a leader. She specialises in working with teams and individuals going through periods of change, whether that is stepping into a new role, coming back from parental leave, or navigating the uncertainty of organisational change. As well as being a coach, Gill volunteers as a mentor for the GoodWork charity, providing mentoring for young people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds to support them getting corporate employment. Right, let's do this episode 190 of Working Hours with Gill Beadle. So, what are you doing now?
Yeah, so now I am an executive coach, or leadership coach as I prefer to use. I qualified about 10 months ago as an ILM7 executive coach and mentor, and I've been coaching clients one-on-one pretty much throughout all that time. I've built up quite a lot of coaching hours before that, I used to coach internally at organisations that I worked in. So I initially started off mentoring junior members of staff, and then that kind of built into coaching conversations with those staff. And it became something of a side project at work that I really enjoyed doing. So when I had my son, who's 4 now, I went back to work after maternity leave, and I didn't love being back at work after maternity leave. I felt like I could never get that balance to be a good senior leader and be a good mum.
Yeah.
And I really struggled with it. And then luckily for me, the organisation that I worked for at the time were acquired, and it gave me the opportunity to make a decision to step away at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, right, what do I do with myself now? Do I want to go back into a delivery role, which is my bread and butter? You know, I've been programme director, PMO director. That's what I've done in healthcare IT for many, many, many years, like 20 odd years. And I thought, do I go and seek another role like that? Or do I step away and do something that I'm a bit more passionate about doing? Mm-hmm. Really kind of got my head together with my husband and thought, what is it that gets me going as an individual? What do I find interesting? And as I mentioned to you at the start of the interview, even as a child, I was really quite curious. I feel like I'm really good at making connections with people. And in my working career, when times got tough, it was the coaching that gave me a bit of light relief at the end of the tunnel, you know, having those conversations with people and helping them to develop themselves. So it was a no-brainer. So I just spontaneously booked myself on a course. I finished there in December 2023 and started a course in January 2024. It's a 14-month course, really involved. Lots and lots of coaching, all online, coaching each other, being coached myself, being supervised myself. And then, qualified with an ILM 7 in January this year. And I've been coaching one-on-one since then.
Okay. So where are we? What are we doing now? So next question is, how do you get into it? You've kind of covered that. What I will ask is, I mean, there are ways that you could have done it. Obviously, you've made the decision to go into business for yourself, and I assume, how have you done that?
I've got my own company, and not as a sole trader, and it's called Beadle. I set it up initially before I was qualified as a coach, and I used that company to do some contracting work in the delivery space, but very much on my terms, because one of the decisions to step away from my corporate role was to give me more time to hang out with my son, and be present with him whilst I was doing that job. Whilst I was working. So I set myself the challenge of still getting senior work, but at only 2.5 to 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to say that because I've got quite a lot of connections in the industry, I managed to do that. I had a break first, I took 4 months or so off, and then I had a few calls and people asked me to pick up various pieces of work. So that's why I set up Beadle, and kind of did that probably from April last year through to February this year. So there's a little bit of an overlap. In between that time, I was obviously doing my coaching qualifications. So I couldn't pick up any paid coaching at that point. And then as I became qualified, again, I went back to my network of people that I've worked with over the last 20 years, reached out and either had people referred into me or made rekindled relationships with people that then decided to trust me to be their coach.
That was the question I was going to ask, was about how you got your first sort of clients. I mean, how are you, I guess, with a few days a week, and you've kind of budgeted it out, have you just kind of like set yourself up where you are steady, or do you have to, I mean, how much business development and acquiring clients do you need to do at the moment?
A lot.
Right.
A lot. So if you know anything about the tech industry at the moment, it's on its backside in terms of, nobody's hiring, nobody's got any budget to spend. Ideally, I'd be able to reach out to corporate clients, and, coaching is a great investment for their senior leaders. Yeah. Absolutely no argument about that. It's an easy sell, but the budgets are not there.
Yeah.
So it's marketing, networking, LinkedIning, all the stuff that I absolutely hate doing. is absolutely necessary. I personally found it much easier to be in the room with people. So I'll go to networking events and have conversations. I find that to be much more effective than just putting posts out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. There's so many. I mean, even on the podcast I have interviewed, I mean, coach has got to be one of the most popular roles, which I mean, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. So, and it's the local area and coaches want to be known. So yeah, I've had a lot of coaches, and it's that thing of it's needed, but also is it needed as well? Because we didn't used to have all of these coaches, but it's like, so my background, when I was down in London, I worked at the TUC and I was working for Union Learn, which is it's kind of made up from the education side of the unions and then like a bunch of funding, partially from government, and then the unions around education and promoting lifelong learning and constant skills. So that's why I did my degree as a mature student. I got really into the whole lifelong learning journey. So I'm well on board with skills. I'm well on board with the whole learning thing and constantly training your staff and constantly upskilling people. And you hear it a lot in business and business worlds, but you don't necessarily, well, you don't seem to see it all the time in businesses and in business attitudes of like, they like to talk about having all of the skills, but they don't always want to spend on developing the skills and, you know, making sure everyone's up to standard and all those kind of things. And that whole thing of, I mean, I don't know what the stats are now, but back when I was involved in that world, 70% of new managers never receive any management training. And it's like, well, why are you getting them to do something that you've given them no support in doing, no training how to do? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Not really a question there, just a bunch of words, but I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You know, when I worked in corporate myself, if money's tight and the teams are not performing well, money isn't invested back into the teams, the training budget is cut, isn't it? Not a lot has changed there. I think a lot of the clients that I work with are self-funded clients. So I have got a couple of corporate clients, and that is great. And I feel I'll probably get more corporate clients on the back of having some initial ones. But a lot of the people that I work with are people that are going through challenging times because they might have had a life change. So it might have been they've had long-term sick and they're lacking confidence to go back into the workplace. It could be that they're menopausal, because guess what, your brain chemistry changes and knocks you for six. And suddenly the most confident of people, speaking from experience here, you just feel like you're all over the place. So I'm finding that a lot of people are going, hang on a minute, what do I need? Do I need another Udemy course, or do I actually need to invest in something that's long-term sustainable and gives me a toolkit which I can refer back to time and time again? And I went through that journey myself. When I went back to work, I felt a bit lost, as I mentioned, and I did actually reach out to my coach at that point and went through that process myself again, which started with looking at why I felt I couldn't manage both work and home to the level that I felt I should. And we kind of spent looking at, well, what is that level and what should that balance look like? And we often talk about work-life balance, but what is work-life balance? Because work-life balance for you is completely different to work-life balance for me, and completely different to work-life balance for, you know, my husband or somebody else or somebody else or somebody else. So the first element is to look at, well, what is the right work-life balance for you? Is that 10-90? Is it 80-20? That's what we worked on. And we also looked at what drives me as an individual in terms of my values, what gets me out of bed, what am I interested in, and also what does my current role at the time give me that meets those values, and what does it really starve me of? And what I came to the conclusion of really quickly is it starved me of connection with other people, and I absolutely need that. Like, even working on my own now, with my own business, I seek out other coaches and try to have coffees with people regularly just to get that sense of connection and stay in touch with people, because otherwise I think I'd drive myself bonkers. So I've totally lost my train of thought, but
That's
yeah.
okay.
So I think hopefully I've answered your question.
Yeah, no, you have. I mean, like I say, there wasn't really a question there. There was just a bunch of comments. Yeah, well, we'll dig into that a bit more. I'm going to jump us straight into the next question. I think what we'll do is we'll probably jump through these quite quick and then just waffle at the end. So
That's
I'll probably
fine.
ask you a bunch of questions at the end. So obviously you've done this training recently. You've done setting up the business recently. Next question's about COVID. So we're going back a bit there. I'm going to ask about that anyway, the way that I normally ask about it, but it might be worth then coming back to, I mean, it might come out in your answer anyway, but maybe sort of how that connects to now, whether it has an impact or whether that, So what I want to look at with the COVID question is, first of all, what was the experience of going into lockdown for you, work-wise? And then coming out the other side, was there anything that changed permanently for you? Obviously, you didn't go straight into this new business, but there might have been other changes that happened before you made that move. So, so what was your kind of lockdown experience to begin with?
So I worked for a healthcare IT company.
Yeah.
So COVID was a very, very busy period for everybody at our organisation. It was also a really rewarding period because we were making changes to software that had real impact to the NHS in setting up centres, in supporting the IT. So it was a rewarding time. For me personally, it meant working, we all, obviously everybody worked from home, but whilst a lot of people's businesses were slowing down, our days were increasing in pace. I actually didn't mind that because the thought of being at home all the time was quite a dull prospect. I think being connected with colleagues and seeing the real changes that we were doing was really kept me going during lockdown. The long days weren't an issue either, because before COVID I would typically get into the office at 7 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes I wasn't leaving the office until 7 o'clock at night. Now suddenly I didn't have to commute and I had all this extra time. And then I had some great news during COVID, because I found out I was pregnant after many, many, many years of trying. So I think I probably looked after myself better in COVID than I had for the previous 10 years. So for me, lockdown was a blessing in disguise. The other big thing that happened during COVID was I was asked to set up a new function for the company, which was a group portfolio management office. It was based on the back of some feedback they'd had from, I think it was Deloitte. And so that suddenly thrust me into quite a central role in the organisation. So I was on quite a quick trajectory, I guess, and moved up to director level at that point. And it was a fantastic experience because I managed to build a team from scratch, roll out new processes across the business, and create what we would, became almost like an advisory board to the C-suite at the business. And I'm not sure many people had done that in full lockdown globally before. So I wear that with pride that we managed to do that at such a busy time as well as being heavily pregnant, at which time most people didn't know until I stood up and they might have seen me on the Teams camera.
That's a new one as well, actually, because you think of, when you're seeing people on the cameras and stuff, and I'm aware of, you don't know how tall anyone is. You've got an idea in your head, and then you meet someone in real life and they're like, oh God, I thought you were way shorter than that. Or, and then because you're making all these assumptions, aren't you? You've seen this person and therefore, you know what they look like, but you don't. And then something like that, it's like you could literally have gone pretty much the whole of your pregnancy with nobody knowing.
Well, I mean, in some cases, I was sending emails to say that I was wrapping up before mat leave, and people were like, what are you talking about?
Because they haven't had that time. They haven't seen you. They haven't had that opportunity to get used to it. And if you think of it, whenever other colleagues have been pregnant, you're aware. When they're showing, you're aware
that you're waddling along. And I'm only 5'1" for the record. So I was quite big.
So, well, let's do coming out of lockdown. So did you do the thing where, I mean, if you're already spending lots of time in work, did that kind of just fit into a normal pattern then, where it was like, all right, I'm doing the hours that I'm doing, and now I can shut off, you don't need to hide in the workplace or hang around and do extra stuff? Does that make sense that you don't have that? Because I used to go into, when I'd stay later at work, it was generally I had something that was going to, or I just wanted to avoid rush hour, or do you know what I mean? You're kind of like,
Yeah.
I may as well stay here a few extra hours, get this done, because I'm only going to have to do it tomorrow, that kind of thing. Were you able to switch off, or did you get even worse? Were you like,
No.
I'm going to work all the hours?
No, I was able to switch off. And I think for me, I needed everything to be in a different room. So I was fortunate that we had spare bedrooms. So, because my husband was also working from home.
Yeah.
So I was in one spare bedroom, he was in the other. And the rules were that when the door shut, and that's it. We didn't, I'm not the kind of person that can switch off easily. So if there had been a laptop on the side, I would have been trying to get into that laptop. But obviously, being pregnant, having very limited options for going out and exercising, it was really important that I had that switch off. And then also through COVID, we decided to move house 8 months pregnant. So there was that to focus on as well.
Fun, yeah. Make it easy for yourself. I mean, I suppose rather than anything that changed, I mean, obviously you're working in IT, so even the people, working remotely, that's not exactly new to you. Even if it was in a space where they're not especially doing it all the time, it's something you would have already been doing, I'm guessing.
Yeah, because we had a lot of teams in India and they weren't outsourced teams. They were part of our business, they worked directly for us. So it actually made things easier because when we were all on site, you'd be in a situation with cross-functional teams where you'd have, 6 or 7 people in a meeting room and then 2 people on a call from India. And I think everybody being on a virtual call just leveled the playing field a bit, and it helped our colleagues in India have more of a say and feel more connected. And it also gave us an appreciation of how tough it can be when you're on a call sometimes and not in a room, drawing a whiteboard.
Yeah. I'm just thinking whether we want to go on to the next question or to stay with this a bit longer. I mean, so I suppose the third element of the question was, is there a relation here? I mean, was that change kind of not just the having children, but also that experience of working differently and having a different work experience as well, like the actual experience of doing the work, because obviously you're not going into a place and meeting those colleagues in person. Was that freeing, or was that, because obviously now you're working in an area where you've come through this coaching process, you're coaching yourself, you made this decision. So, and it's the connection with people, with colleagues that you sort of crave in the work. I'm wondering, was there any clarification of that when you were through that period, or was it, I mean, you've already got plenty going on, you're pregnant, you're moving house, you've got a global pandemic, right? Was it, okay, you've got space to think, but you also don't have space to think because you've already got too much on? So it just kind of give you the space to do what you're already doing rather than give you more space.
I think whilst there was a lot going on, it was a lot less mentally draining than having to commute in.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually live that far away from the office. I lived less than 5 miles away from the office, but in one of the worst areas of Leeds where, it was a 4-point grid. So if one element of one traffic light 2.5 miles away was down, it was just locked in that square, in that quadrant. So it could sometimes take 45, 50 minutes to do 4 or 5 miles. And that's soul destroying.
Yeah.
Which is why I used to go in so early. But there were so many accidents so frequently that that for me, that's what used to take the toll, mentally drained. Before you even get into the office, you've had a battle to get to the office. So I think whilst the days were longer, the work was very fulfilling, and that's a big tick in my book. I was learning loads. That's another value for me, like growth value. I was connecting with colleagues and we were making real progress. Again, another area. So I think less mentally draining, more enjoyable. I think after COVID, which I think is where you were going with the question, there was no real change for me because I kind of went on mat leave as COVID restrictions lifted.
Yeah.
So, and the organisation that I worked for had made a decision in lockdown that they were never going to go back into an office environment. They would remain a remote first business. So I guess the big change for me came after mat leave, because then I was facing something that I'd never faced before, which was returning to work after your year out, only remote working. And that isolation was very tricky and something I'd not anticipated, because I guess, you know, if you're going back into an office after a year out, you're seeing people, you're catching up with people, you're having conversations, you're getting a real feel for what's going on in the organisation. But when you're going into your office, on your screen, you're joining a Teams meeting, it's transactional all of a sudden. And then I went back into a really big role as well. I went back in looking after a huge cloud migration at 3 days a week. So then it becomes even more transactional, because suddenly you're trying to get through a lot of work, dealing with a huge team of people. You don't have time to have a 25-minute chat. It's, okay, where are we with this? What we're doing with that? What challenges have we got here? And it's very transactional. And that is where I lost the connection that I needed. And that's why it became such a struggle for me to get that balance between work and home life. It just never sat right with me.
You need that's an example of where you need the physical separation, because as well, I mean, you think of the childcare of that, you don't have the separate. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have that physical barrier there. So even if you've got someone, if the child's in the house, and even if you've got someone caring for them, if you hear noise as a new parent, you're gonna have to go. Like, you just have to, because you're there. So there's that element as well. So you're not getting that kind of, and you're not getting that separation from the child. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like, oh, I need to be torn away, but like, you need that as a person, as an individual, because all you've had is literally baby talk for months or whatever. So you need that, you know, you need to be back in society, to be embedded in socializing and social skills and professional, you know, the professional world as well, and those kind of behaviors. It's not quite a growth thing, but it's like all the key elements of what you actually need aren't there, are they? Because you're sort of, what is this pretend thing where I'm looking in the computer at my house? Like, where's my job? And also, why am I separating from my new child to look in computer and not be at my work? I mean, like you say, it's a weird experience.
It's a really weird experience, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think had I have been going back into an office, I would have had a clear separation in my day.
Yeah.
Even if it was just like an hour to myself in a commute to get to the office. Now, don't get me wrong, I was grateful that I didn't have an hour commute to get into the office, because actually that meant I could actually work and have like that time to actually focus on what I needed to do, because I used to do 3 long days. The downside of doing 3 long days was my husband would do nursery drop off. I'd start work at 7:45. My son would be back at 6 at the very, very latest. And then I'd still be working. So I might finish at 6:15. But in that time, I've maybe had an hour all day for like lunch and breaks, and no real time to prepare before work or decompress after work. So I was decompressing at 8:30 when the day was done in terms of childcare, and then might have been up 3 or 4 times a night trying to get that, get my son settled again. I remember one night, which was quite a low point, where the night before a big meeting, to be awake several times in the night. And I remember I was presenting to the group board on the progress of a programme, and it wasn't going particularly well at that stage. and I was trying to sleep in a cot because that was the only way I could get him to settle. And I was laid there, and it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I was thinking, I might as well just get up now. Might as well just get up now. It's not gonna recover itself. Yeah, and then turning up and doing the meeting anyway. So yeah, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. You know, I've got many happy memories, but once I'd had my coaching again, my personal coaching for me, and realised what was off and why I wasn't happy and why I couldn't find that balance, it just gave me that kind of clarity that I needed to go, hang on a minute, something's got to change. And when there's the right opportunity for it to change, I'm just going to go for it. And then as it was, we got acquired, and that just gave me the perfect opportunity and buffer financially to go, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go into the Brexit question. I want to talk more the meat of your business at some point in this, but we'll carry on through the questions at the moment. Brexit, obviously quite tied up with COVID. It either affects or doesn't affect people. It's kind of like, it's one of those things of like, you've noticed a change or you haven't. Most people are kind of, you know, haven't really noticed. And then in specific areas, it's like, yep, we've definitely noticed that. So what's your experience being work-wise? Has it changed anything for you that you've noticed, or is it just, same
No,
old?
I mean, from my personal business point of view, probably not, because obviously I'm fairly new business. I think there is an element that everything is more expensive now, and people have less expendable income, and therefore can't necessarily afford to make the kind of investment in themselves that coaching is. I mean, some people do, obviously, and that's brilliant, but I think it's a shame that it's not more accessible to a wider group of people. Like, it's very much seen as executive or senior leadership, but lots of people at all levels could benefit from coaching, and unfortunately, because businesses are not investing in it, there's not many opportunities for individuals on a lower income to benefit from it. And I guess that's where group coaching can help, because it's a much cheaper option for people, and there are lots of group coaching offerings out there. My concern with some of those offerings are they're not necessarily certified coaches, and they do make quite bold statements and promises about what can be achieved, and your coach should never really be promising results, because the results are down to the individual and the actions that the individual, takes accountability for.
Yeah,
I might get some hate from some coaches now, but
no, I mean, that's a key point.
The truth.
Well, I mean, one of the other things that coaches have said is that it's like anybody can be a coach, which is, it's double-sided, isn't it? Of like, well, that's great. It's very accessible to people. Ideally, people with some kind of experience in what they're coaching people on. But equally, it's open to anyone. So, like, any charlatan or madman can do it as well.
They can, but I guess if there's anybody listening that's interested in pursuing, having coaching themselves, there are some things that you can look out for which can guarantee you have a better coaching experience. So I think the first of that is, have they got any qualifications? Most coaches that I know do have some kind of qualification. The next thing is, are they affiliated with any kind of governing body? Now, it is an unregulated profession, but there are governing bodies such as the ICF and the EMCC. If you are a good quality coach, you will sign up to one of the code of ethics. I'm a member of the EMCC, and as part of their code of ethics, I have to have regular supervision, which I do, and I have to have a CPD in place, and I have to make sure that I'm making the right decisions, ethical decisions when it comes to coaching relationships. So that might look like, I might have a chemistry call with you, Simon, and then it might be that actually I think it's not coaching that you need. You might need to go and see your GP because there's actually something else going on under there. And an unscrupulous coach might say, yeah, sure, sign on the dotted line, but an ethical coach should really be pointing you to the right place if coaching is not the right for you, or if indeed they're not the right coach for you. So that's another important factor.
Yeah, because, it's not one size fits all, is it? It's about who's going to be best at encouraging you, and who are you going to trust, because you need that trust relationship, and that has to be both ways as well.
Yeah.
Because you need honesty for the trust. So
Yeah, it's a really
people,
vulnerable position to be in working with a coach, and it should always be a relationship of equals. You know, it's not mentoring. It's not the coach is a leader or the coach is a teacher. It's absolutely not that. It's about working together in a partnership. When I was doing my coach training, they called it a thinking partner, which I really like the idea of that. You know, we don't direct, we don't tell, we open up space for the individual to reflect, we ask the right questions, and we do something that AI cannot do, and that's observe and notice changes in physiology and reactions and responses which you might not want to share with us, but we can see, and we'll pick up on them, and we'll use reflective questioning to kind of draw that out of you. And sometimes having that space gives people, you know, just clarity of thought. My favourite thing to do in coaching quite often is to ask if something is fact or fiction, because quite a lot of what we tell ourselves becomes fact in our head, but actually it's complete fiction, and that's what holds us back.
Yeah, very true. That was the Brexit question, wasn't it?
It was.
Well, one of the things that I was going to ask you in there, I was thinking about that. I don't know whether it's. I'm gonna say it anyway, but if you don't want to answer it, you don't need to. If everyone had a coach, so you talked about accessibility to the resource there. So if you think of that in terms of like something like TB, where, you know, we've got all the drugs where the disease isn't at, and where the disease is, we don't have the drugs. And it's that kind of distribution, isn't it? It's like all of the people that really need the coaching, that would really benefit from it, can't have it because they haven't got any money to afford access to it. I think I'm just doing that thing where I'm just saying a lot of stuff at you, and then I'm going to get you to respond to it. But like, I think there's something in there of, you know, because unions and churches fulfilled those kind of roles for people of like, not just moral and spiritual and cultural instruction and fashions and so on, but also like real sort of, not quite material help, but, you know, the social, the abstracts, the emotional, the caring, the developmental, like the instructional, the growth kind of inputs that you need. That was part of where that came from socially, and you're kind of filling in that space, which is why, you know, again, it's like you can see why there are a lot of coaches. And as well, when you've worked in places and you've kind of made a bit of an effort with it, do you know what I mean? And you like you've worked properly, and then you've noticed through that experience of like, there's a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, haven't got a clue, not making an effort, don't care, like all of these kind of things. But you also know that that's a thing of, but they're not, you know, they don't always buy into it because they don't always understand what they're doing and why we're doing this and why that's happening that way and all these kind of things. And it's that thing of, if you just knew, but if you just think about it like this, then that's going to change your whole kind of thing. So it's that process of, there's loads of us now who've done all these weird jobs because careers have disappeared before we started working, or while we were working. And now you're kind of like, well, what do I do with all, like, I know actual stuff that's useful to people, that people could benefit from here. And I know that empirically because I've seen all these people that I've worked with who are like, God, they need a bit of this support and a bit of that support. And equally, you know, you see it in yourself of like, I'm weak here and I need to develop this and all of these kind of things. So you're, you know, I can see it, like there is a big social valuable role in it. But yeah, like I said, I'm just going to say a load of things at you, and yeah, feel free to respond to that.
Right, where to begin with that then? So I think the key for the wider population is self-awareness. And you can generate your own self-awareness by writing things down, reflecting back on your week. You know, either without a coach, you could look up a self-awareness activity, you could sit and reflect. If you sit and reflect even for 20 minutes a day, you will learn so much about yourself and start to question your behaviour, even without a coach. So in that respect, you don't need a coach. Where coaches add benefit and value, there should never be a parent-child relationship in coaching, ever. If it is, it's mentoring. It should only ever be peer-to-peer, equal to equal, because if the balance is off, it's not coaching. Okay? So where a coach add value is, you might self-reflect at home, but what you're not going to do to yourself, most people, is challenge your way of thinking. And that's what a coach might do. So a coach might get you to retell a story in your own words out loud. And then hearing that story back out loud to somebody else, you might have a realization that actually something isn't the way you perceived it to be, which is why I like that question that I mentioned earlier. Because as soon as you start to question your own assumptions, that's when growth happens. And that is the value of a coach versus, self-reflection, I guess. Going back to the people not being great at work, there's loads of different reasons for that, aren't there? So it could be somebody's having a really hard time at home, and they've got so much going on that they can't actually focus at work and contribute. It might be that they're disengaged because they don't understand their role in the strategic goals of the organisation. It might be because they feel they're being overlooked. It might just be because they're a bit crap and not bothered and they're just turning up for a paycheck. And we've all been there at different phases of our lives, I'm sure. But I think there are things organisations can easily do to remedy some of that. And it's not a performance review. It's not a performance review. It's not a score. It's about engaging your staff and really helping them see and connect the dots from the strategic goals of the organisation right through to their day-to-day and understand their purpose in that role. And they'll quickly see then where that person needs development. And then you can always get a coach in, or you could get a leadership development trainer in, or send them on some free courses. There's loads of different things you can do. The connection piece, I think this is the final thread of your question, is a bit tricky, isn't it? Because we're becoming more and more insular as people. We hear horror stories of people turning to ChatGPT for conversation. And I think the role of community plays a big part in that. And community could be, popping down the shops and just making sure you say hello to every single person that you see. It could be having a regular spot that you go for coffee and knowing the coffee shop owner. Or it could be that you go to tech meetups or whatever meetups your flavour of meetup is to try and make that connection. But yeah, I think you're right. You're on the money with the fact that community is lacking. And I think a lot of that comes back to, and we're getting really deep here, the stresses and strains of life on people at the moment. There's mass redundancies everywhere. Prices are really high. People are under strain. Middle class families are struggling. I mean, like lower socioeconomic families really struggling through the roof. I mean, food bank usage off the chart. Don't ask me for the numbers, but off the chart. I live in a nice village, shall we say. We've got a food bank now because it's needed, because people can't afford to do their weekly shop. I think, there's so many challenges we could go into about that, but I'm getting too deep now. I'm probably out of my area of expertise.
Well, I mean, we can mention the Dickensian levels of terribleness, even if we haven't got the solutions for them. But yeah, this is, to record things that are happening. So yeah, it is worth mentioning. So I'm not going to do social media yet. We'll save that. We'll do the climate change question because we're already on the deep stuff now. So let's get deeper. So I don't know where this falls for you. Is this something that you think about in your work, or is it something that you thought about in the design of your business? Obviously, you have that remote accessibility to coach people and so on. How does that... Well, I'll let you talk about all of that. But I mean, in terms of the work, does climate change sort of come in? Does it a factor for you, or is that something like a nice to have later down the line? How does it play in?
Yeah, so I think I am conscious of any mileage that I do. I have got an electric vehicle, but I am still conscious of driving. I try to use public transport where I can, but living where I live, it's quite remote sometimes. So, a train journey can be a long journey just to pop into a major city. So I think public transport where I can, but I do use a car, albeit it's electric. I am fully online for most of my clients. I will go to site if that's what is preferred, but we can do online for most things. If I'm working with a corporate client on some leadership stuff, then I'll obviously be on site, but I encourage them to have electronic documentation rather than any printouts. We might occasionally use post-it notes, but my preference is whiteboards with markers because you can take pictures of those.
Yeah.
I guess the challenge is when everything is online, it's really convenient to forget about the footprint of running the data centres. And it's vast, isn't it? I mean, you hear the stats coming out about ChatGPT and all the other AI tools, which, it's data centres powered by data centres powered by data centres. So, we can't deny that we are contributing to climate change. But yeah, I don't give it a huge amount of thought. I'm just do what I can.
I mean, does it ever come up coaching wise? I mean, like, I can't see that it would or how it would. But I mean, maybe in passing conversation or whatever, of like people, it is England, people bitching about the weather.
No.
So
no, it's never come up.
No, I mean, the thing is with that, I mean, you are trying to keep, like, you're obviously conscious of it. It's that sort of, we've all got that I'm not doing enough sort of thing, and also I am doing something. It's like, because we haven't got any proper clear guidance on what we can do, and we can't do anything that is significant sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, it's there in that already, but you're not. I think it might be something over time that you see more of in your work, but not necessarily. It's a weird one, that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say is when I work with corporate clients, quite often one of their procurement questions is what is my sustainability strategy and stance on climate change, that kind of thing. And I kind of work around that because it's not key to getting the contract, but it is something that I thought actually maybe I should look at it at some point. But it in the vast sway of other things that I need to do, it's not high up on the list, and it's not because I don't care. It's not a priority right now in terms of my business and how it operates.
I mean, have you done like a carbon literacy training course for your work? Because
I have not.
Because they do exist, and there's like ones where you can get sort of accredited and so on. But I'm like, would that help sell things to people? I mean, obviously in that circumstance where you're talking about clients, and you could be like, well, yeah, I'm certified in this, so I know about it.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I'm going to add that to my list for growth.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, well, if you ask me about that, I'm aware of it. I mean, here's another random one. What about, have you done first aid? Have you done a first aid course?
Yeah, I've done first aid training. I've done mental health first aid training as well.
Yeah. So do you like a qualification?
I do like a qualification, but for somebody that's worked in project and program management for largely 20 years, I'm not an advocate of qualifications over experience.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic, I'm a doer, and I would never consider myself a learner.
Yeah.
But it is nice to get a rubber stamp every now and then.
Yeah. And sort of, not only do you say that you can do it and you know that you can do it, you've also got a piece of paper where someone else says, yeah, they can do it.
You'll never look at.
Okay, so I'm going to move us on to social media. So this is quite a big area, but also kind of not, because you've already said to us that you find it much better and more effective to do the in-person networking. Now, I've heard with other people, speaking to a lot of people about their social media and their strategies, there is the kind of thing of, if your social media, like if you've got a decent following and people have seen you on the socials, it's a really good icebreaker for those kind of events. Have you managed to have that experience yet, where someone's sort of, you've not had to introduce yourself, but someone's seen your stuff online and kind of gone, yeah, I wanted to meet you. You're like, I know you from thing.
No.
No, well, that's where we need to get you to. So hopefully after this, someone will come up and go, I heard you on the podcast.
No, I don't think I'm consistent enough on social media to be in that position at this stage. I absolutely hate having to write for social media, but I am on it. So my big barrier for social media is I only want to contribute when it feels authentic, which I know is a really fancy word and everybody bounces authenticity around now. But I don't want to just post every day and be like churning, for want of a better word, crap out so that the algorithm's hitting its marks, because that doesn't feel honest to me. And integrity is one of my core values. So it has to feel like I've got something useful to say, somebody can learn from what I'm going to talk about, or it's personal to me and I'm willing to share it because either I've had a takeaway from it or it was something that I think others would take something away from. My best posts on social media are usually when it comes from that place. So I'm either talking about my family and how that relates to work, or experiences that I've had that have put me in the position that I'm now in, and they're the ones that really take off. And when I say really take off, I'm talking, maybe 60 people, not 6,000. I've not gone viral or anything like that. But to me, it doesn't matter how many likes you get, because unless you're turning that into business, it's irrelevant anyway.
Oh, it's quality, not quantity as well. It's who's looking, not how many.
Yeah. And when I first started the business officially as, Gill Beadle coaching, I was thinking, right, well, I've got to get this out and I've got to get that out. And then I kind of went wide with it, and I was just, if something sprang to mind, I would think, right, I'll post about that. And I might go on a walk and something would occur to me and I go, right, well, I'll post about that. And then what I've realised is people like an element of consistency. It doesn't have to be consistent as in 3 times a week or set days or whatever, but they need to know that they can come to you about certain things. And the start of all that is understanding who your ideal client is and who you want to attract, and then what services you're offering and what you want to share with them about those services. And that might be, I talk about high performing teams quite a lot. It might be giving something away about high performing teams that they can go and try on their own and building out from there. So I know that this is a gap for me. I think some of it is because I'm dyslexic. I hate putting myself out there. I feel highly criticised. Like I criticise myself so badly when I put anything out. I double check it. I'll hit send. I'll look at it. I'll be like, oh God, there's a spelling mistake in that. Quick edit. Like, it doesn't matter how many times. So I've thought about it, and I've actually reached out to a friend who is an amazing copywriter. She's writing a book at the moment actually, and she I'm going to be doing some work with her over the next few weeks on getting that strategy nailed down and building that authentic voice. And actually, I have to do all the writing, obviously, but she'll just give me some kind of pointers on how to make that a bit more consistent in terms of the messaging that I want to give. So yeah, I'm working on it.
I've never really put it this way before, but the way that you were talking then, it's made me think of, when you do an online profile, and you've got to have an avatar or, put your profile image in. It's kind of that. So I was thinking back to your, doing performing arts, realizing you didn't really want to be up front. You want to be more supporting, backstage, developmental, I don't need to be the center of attention. I'm interested in all these things. I want to be involved, but I don't want everybody looking at me as if I'm up to something.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a performance anxiety, but it's that sort of thing of you made me think of that thing of, when you first look at, or even any kind of online profile, and you've got to do what do you look like, or how do you want to represent yourself and tell yourself this thing, and you're put on the spot with that. And it's this kind of, well, I don't know. And it has to come in that sort of way where you haven't thought about it. Mm-hmm. I think it's that interjection of, I think about these things, I shouldn't be thinking about this. It's like your brain's in the way. It's the stop, get out of your own way kind of thing. And it is that thing. So I resisted doing videos for ages because I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to look at myself that much, but also, I'm getting over it, and you just kind of it doesn't matter. And I have had, I've made efforts with consistency on posting on things. And again, I'm not reaching like masses of people, but I have managed to grow organically, very slowly. But, I've done YouTube shorts that have reached 300 people, which like I will post for ages and ages and ages and not be able to reach that many people. And I'm like, I put out one YouTube short and it's gone to 300 people. So it's video is the way forward as well, because you don't have to think of the copy, and people haven't seen it. Like most people won't see it. And it's that thing of once they've seen you once, even if it's in some load of old rubbish, then when you do post something, you've got more chance of like that good thing hitting them. And and I know I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. Like I'm not breaking any news to you here. But it's that sort of, I recognize that kind of, I do, but I don't want to. And like, if I'm going to do it, I want it to be good. But the thing is with the internet is like, good doesn't travel far online. Rubbish does. Like, the dumber it is, the dumber it is, the further it will travel online. And that's just the truth. Because it's also about small packets of information. The medium is the message, This is why this doesn't really work. It's like pay attention for several hours to people talking about things that are like actually kind of meaningful, well, not like deep and meaningful, but like the everyday. And it's like, oh, well, that's boring and unexciting. I've got all this drama in my scroll that I can look at instead. Again, just a bunch of words that I've said to you. There isn't really a question there, but I'll let you respond.
Yeah, no, I recognise that. And I as a coach have reflected a lot on this, and I resonate with the whole putting yourself out there and almost holding yourself back, not wanting to. I put it down to feeling exposed. Like you putting yourself out there and you're open to anybody's comments, and I've been really fortunate so far that I've not really had any negative comments, but I know what that'll do to me if I did ever get one. So I guess there's an element of ego there and just not wanting to feel exposed, but these are all things that you can learn to overcome, just like public speaking. You put yourself out there, it might go crap the first time, you do it again, it's a bit better, you do it again and it becomes second nature. So that's where I'm planning to get to. What I'm really rubbish at doing is making time to really sit and think about that content, and that's why I'm going to be working with Fiona so that I can get a proper schedule in place and really start to drive that content. But it'll be meaningful content, more kind of bloggy, newslettery than just little one-liners or random posts about my walk the other day.
But then you'll do all of that, and then you'll find that the random post about your walk the other day is your best post. Best performing post. But this is the way it works, isn't it? It's that like, because I like I said, I came. I think it was this morning's interview actually, but I also wanted to be in film and theatre, and I very much think of like I should be doing clever things, or I should be doing scripted things, or I should do this, that, and the other, but then you have to think about it and spend time, and until you actually want to spend that time on doing that thing in a spontaneous way, you're not going to do it, because you're not going to sit down and plan that. And then if you do, it'll be rubbish anyway, because you've spent loads of time on it, and then you put it out there and no one sees it, and then you're really disappointed because it's like, well, I spent ages on that one and no one liked it. And then the one that you've done of like, oh, look at this, I've fallen in a puddle, it gets massive, and you're like,
you've seen that one of mine, have you?
Is that like, why am I bothering? Like I'm trying to do a thing and make it look good, and nobody cares.
It's true.
So there was something else on this. I mean, we've kind of done rambling about AI. I mean, well, you're making effort in this area, so I'm thinking like I want to bring it back to priority, and I want to bring it back to that reality of like, ultimately what you're doing in terms of going out there, being present in spaces and doing physical networking, and also that's ticking that box of connection that there is a level of, if you got something online and someone was like, oh, you know, you might get a really great offer online, say, some big name person is like, actually, I want you to coach me or something like that. There could be something really comes out of it. But even in that moment of something exciting happening, it doesn't happen in the same way as it does with the person in a room, you know, because there's a whole moment that, whereas online, it's a fragment, you know, it's a kind of, it's not as great as an experience. So you're not incentivized either to kind of focus on that. The way I framed this question at the beginning, I mean, I kind of sold it to you as like the most beneficial thing from it would be that you don't have to do an icebreaker or introduce yourself, that people in the room would already know you and you don't have to, you know, like half your pitch is already done. So, I mean, you obviously see it as something important that you're making the effort to go out there and kind of build on it. Is it something that you want to do well at, or?
Yeah, so I am not a salesperson, and this is another weak area for me. So whilst I'm now more comfortable with networking. What I'm less comfortable with is networking and trying to sell my services, because it comes back to that authenticity piece. Mm-hmm. And I want to make real connection with people. Now, obviously, I'm there to grow my brand and to hopefully, you know, make connections that someday will reach out to me and go, oh, you know, we had a chat at this event and somebody in my team needs coaching. Great. And I am getting better at this, but I found it so hard initially because I'd feel like I almost had to pre-qualify any conversation with, I'm an executive coach, but I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just here for this event, and you know, it's really nice to meet you. You know, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm almost be like really awkward about it. And I went to an event a few weeks ago, and I was talking to another founder about this, and she said, I've got a trick for you. She said, I used to do door-to-door sales. She said, think about it as, how can I help this person, not what am I trying to sell to this person? Mm-hmm. And it just switches the narrative. And it's made such a difference. Yeah. Already, just in how I approach the conversation and not feel like I'm there for the wrong reasons. Mm. You know, I can just enjoy being part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And then it might come to how I can help people, but I don't feel like I'm trying to, you know, sell secretly to them. And it feels a bit better. So to go back to the other part of your question, which is it easier? I think you said, is it easier online, in person than online? I think it's easier because you can continue the conversation. It is more organic because you'll learn about that person, they'll learn about you. Online, you might get somebody reach out, you might answer their question and they might never ever come back to you ever again. Yeah. And again, because I'm not a good salesperson, I don't push hard in a conversation online. I think for me, online is very transactional and you get quite a lot of time wasters. Mm-hmm. when they've just reached out randomly versus they've followed you for a while, they might have interacted with a few of your posts, they might have commented, then they're likely to ask for a call. And it's when they ask for a call that you'll have that kind of, we call it either a discovery call or a chemistry session. Mm-hmm. And that's all about understanding, would we work well together? Yeah. Again, it's not a sales pitch. It's, could we work together as equals? Yeah. Will this relationship work well? Yeah. And that's why I do prefer to have a chemistry call. And I guess having a face-to-face introduction to somebody is almost part of that chemistry call, because you're getting to think to yourself, could I work with this person? And they're thinking, could I work with this person? Mm. So it almost like pre-qualifies any kind of next steps in that relationship. Did I answer your question? Yeah, well, like with the others, there wasn't really a question there. It was just me kind of rambling. And me rambling back at you. We're great, us too. Well, I mean, we're actually saying quite a lot of good stuff, I'll have you know. But yeah, we're doing it at a tempered pace because it's Halloween night and, you know, it's late in the day. So there was something else in there. So, this was the thing. Yeah, I should speed us up a bit, but... So you've been working in health sector tech. You've been working in job roles. What was the experience of how the hell am I going to get someone to give me money? Of like
getting paid. Did that all go pretty smooth and straightforward for you? Was there anything weird about, sending out your first bill and kind of, and your price point as well? Like, did you have advice and guidance on that? Did you have to try and find it, or was it very much like, how did you manage that?
Yeah, so the price point is interesting. So there's two elements that I do. So I'll either do one-to-one coaching directly with individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and the other side is I might do one-to-one coaching on behalf of organisations, or I might go in and do a piece of work with them about leadership or high-performing teams. And the leadership and high-performing teams, I've really struggled to get the right price point with those. And again, sometimes it comes down to budget, but quite often it's because
I'd double your price.
Yeah,
all the other prices are double. Put it higher. Make it seem more executive.
I think sometimes people think because you work for yourself,
mm-hmm.
that the price should be extremely low.
Yeah.
But you're paying for a really experienced person that has a quality offering. Mm-hmm. With the one-to-one coaching, it very much depends on the individual. So I'll give you an example. I had a conversation with somebody just this morning, actually, who has, without giving anything away, they've been made redundant, and they know that they're really suffering with their confidence. Now, I could sit there and go, right, I could cash in here, but ethically, that's not the right thing to do. So after the conversation, what I went back to them with, because we talked about their typical rate, but given the circumstances, I could not take their money. So I've offered something else, which is free, but a much more compact version of what I would normally do. Because for me, I would have, if I had been made redundant, and this is not an offer, Leeds, please don't come to me with hundreds of requests, but as a one-off, it was the right thing to do in the right circumstances. And, when that person's back on their feet, they might run a team and think, I know this person. So for me, that's a long-term investment.
Yeah. I think as well, this is something that I've been banging on about recently, and it's this thing of people just don't think far enough ahead. It's like they're just thinking about the next step. And I think COVID has accentuated that because it's sort of narrowed horizon. Like, I have no future anymore in my projections of things. I can't plan ahead because, well, there's nothing, like, my circumstances aren't going to change or improve, that it's going to be better in the future for me. So every day is the same, and I'll just like deal with what I can day by day, sort of thing. That there was a point there, I told you I'd lose it at some point, where I'd totally
people not thinking far enough ahead.
There you go.
I'm a good
proving
listener,
my own point. Proving my own point in my own point. But yeah, I think it's the sort of, well, what happens next, and then what happens, and then what happens. And I want to link this back to sort of, again, I've heard this on the Leeds Business podcast, but I'm sure people have said it on here. The idea of kind of, oh, someone's leaving, it's terrible. It's like, no, let them go, encourage them to go, because if you give them that support, they have that good memory of you supporting them, like, that's good. You're investing in the long-term future. You're planting a seed. Like, it might not grow, but it might be a huge, it might be a giant beanstalk that you need. Like, you don't know, but you should have that attitude rather than well, no, I've got to get mine now, like, I've got to get well, you can't afford that, so, oh, sorry, I have to go and I have to spend the time on the client who can afford it. It's like, no, we've got an existing relationship, we'll make a deal, we have that flexibility. Ideally, we come to the arrangement that's agreeable to both of us, and then we move forward. But it's that thing again of, well, thinking further ahead, but it's like the thing of, what if I train my staff and they leave? And what if you what if you don't train them and they stay? Which is one of my favorite sayings. But also that, like, let people go, because they might come back. And when they do come back, they're going to bring so much more to you. Like, if you thought they were valuable, like, employee then, when they've gone and worked in 3 other organizations, and, like, whether they're good, bad, or whatever, they've learned stuff from that. And they're bringing that knowledge and that experience back into your business that they wouldn't have had anyway. They would have just had that same role over and over, which has its own developmental properties and skills and so on, and like a deeper professionalization. But that's a whole other vein of deep conversation to get into. But yeah, it's that sort of think on, think ahead, like, and also you're doing this to, like you say, to help people. How can I help this person? But you're also doing it as well to help yourself, because it's like, I need to, that's the whole point. It's like, I need something to do through the day. I need to meet people. I need to share experiences. I need to reproduce society, do all these things, pay the bills, etc., etc. I'm just rambling now. I'll let you interject. Go on.
No, you're right. It's a potentially a long-term investment, but also I do get something out of doing it. So even if I, just do the coaching and there's no further business on the back of that longer term, I've still had the opportunity to coach another person and practice my coaching skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to grow from that, and I get to give back, which is a huge thing for me.
Mm-hmm. What do you bring in terms of, I don't want to frame it in kind of like, are you bringing in spiritual or philosophical practices? Are you very much basing it on, is it sort of hard Yorkshire truths, or is it just kind of like, but I guess what I'm trying to get you to do is like, how would you describe your approach with it?
Yeah, so I'm a non-directive coach, which means I don't tell you anything. You do all the hard work. I work with you to surface the challenges that you're facing and make you reflect so that you can learn and grow through that reflection. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so you're not telling people, well, you need to get up at 5 and light a special candle and do a little run around the house or whatever.
That's firmly in the life coaching space.
Yeah.
Sorry, life coaches. There is space for everybody. No, I think the most I would tap into that is if somebody was having, say, confidence issues, I might, or like really, really struggling, before a meeting or before an interview, I might get them to do a particular breathing technique or a grounding technique and practice that before a stressful time to help them get control of it. But yeah, I don't get them, I wouldn't even know where to begin ringing bells or chanting or anything like that. Walking over fire, no.
I mean, I'm thinking about boundary. I'm thinking about, because you're sort of let people bring it out of themselves. So if it's a skills issue, for example, would the person always, like, do they always know the answer? Do they know that that's something that's lacking, or do you have to, like, how much do you have to bring to it in terms of, I guess that inflects how you're asking the questions and the sort of questions that you ask, but how much of your actual experience do you need to bring in? And I'm thinking like bullshit detector here of like, how do you know when someone's actually, just peddling their own rubbish, not just lying to you, but when they're doing that sort of, you're lying to yourself there. This is the problem. You're not looking at yourself properly here. Like, is that?
It's quite a common thing, that though. So there's a piece of research done, don't ask me to quote who, but it looked at a group of CEOs, I think it was at like a FTSE 100 company, and their staff, and the CEOs had to, or the senior leadership team had to rate themselves on things like competence, approachability, sharing the vision, that kind of stuff. And I think it was on a scale of 1 to 5, and they all gave themselves top marks.
Yeah.
And then their staff gave them really, average marks.
Mm-hmm.
And quite a lot of leaders and people in general, because we don't give ourselves that time to sit and think about how we're doing, we tell ourselves lies, and we don't see our blind spots. So the coach will push, and part of the coaching, the setup of the coaching is contracting, and in that contracting phase we'll talk about challenge, respectful challenge, I call it. So I will make a point of saying there will be times where I will really challenge your way of thinking and push and push and push. Are you comfortable with that? And some people will say, yeah, I love to be challenged, and other people will be like, well, yeah, but I'll let you know if it gets a bit too much. The other thing I say is, don't be surprised if after a couple of sessions you cry. And the amount of people that scoff at that and then go, well, you were right. And that's not because I make them cry for your challenge, but it's because we're all so busy in our lives that actually when you take time out of your day to really question your own thinking, challenge some of the assumptions that you have, and hear your own thoughts and words back. It can be a bit of a smack in the face. One of my first ever coaches had built this narrative, and they won't mind me sharing this story. They built a narrative that they weren't good enough to be operating at director level. And that was because a number of other directors had been brought into the business and they felt that they couldn't operate at that level. So what we did is we explored what evidence there was for that. Mm-hmm. And then we explored the evidence that supported the evidence. So, for example, there might have been, I'll just give you a random scenario. So they might have had feedback and we explored, well, what was the feedback? Well, the feedback was X, but I knew they really thought Y. Well, what gave you the impression that they thought Y? Well, nothing really. And we would explore that and explore that and explore that. And then all of a sudden they were like, it's me, isn't it? I'm the one that's telling myself this. Mm-hmm. So it's that realization and not shying away and allowing yourself to continue to tell yourself this story and create your own narrative that drives that real kind of thought and growth.
Yeah.
Because we're great at lying to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm having another one of those moments of like, I had a question from that. So yeah, I'm just thinking how I want to frame the question. You know, we're in England, we're in the north. And it's kind of come up with this sort of like English putting yourself down, or like, in fact, I remember years ago, there was an American lass that I'd sent an email to, and she did the whole thing of like, stop putting yourself down. I was like, I'm not putting myself down. I'm just being self-deprecating. This is way, but they're also linked. And this attitude of not being good enough, or to shut up, or that's not for you, or I can't do that. And you know, you can tie it into imposter syndrome, but there is a particular thing, like I think it's a particular problem, and I'll say Leeds, but I think it's wider than Leeds, of why do so many of us feel like that? So as much as you've got the CEOs who are like, well, yeah, of course I'm boss at everything, I'm the boss and I'm born to rule, like, but you've got the other sort of, the lower classes just been like, I'm not good enough. Oh, could I have this? Is that something that you have to overcome? Do you think that's something that's just in everybody? Like, is it a particular problem here? What's your sort of take on that? Because I think it's a here thing. Like, I think it's worse here, but I think it's, yeah, I'll let you respond.
Here in the UK or here in Leeds?
I think it's here, like, I think it's a British thing, then it's an English thing, and then it's a more particular sort of northern thing. But when I say sort of Leeds, I'm saying that because I'm doing it here, and I can produce other podcasts where we have discussed this as evidence. So that's why I'm using that, because I can back it up.
Okay, fair enough. So I think more CEOs than you think suffer with feeling like an imposter, but they're just better at covering it. Mm-hmm. So that's my first point. I think you're probably right to a degree that it's a British thing. Is it? Have I noticed it more in people from Yorkshire? I'm not sure I have, if I'm being completely honest. Is it something we can overcome? Yes, but we have to train ourselves. So when I coach the whole self. So I don't just, if I'm coaching a corporate client, I don't just look at their work. I'll ask them to tell me a story from their history, going, back to when they were at school, because that paints a real picture for me as to why they might think certain things about themselves. And there's a great book called The Chimp Paradox. You might have read it. Professor Steve Peters. It's a good read. And he's a renowned psychologist, professor. And he talks about the different parts of the brain. And he says we've got our human self, we've got the computer, and we've got the chimp. And I'll probably get this wrong now because I'm under pressure. But I believe the computer basically stores all our memories and experiences. So under pressure, and this is why coaching is really good for leaders, under pressure, we don't give our human selves time to react with logic. Our chimp goes, hang on a minute, I'm just going to search the computer. Oh, all this crap's happened to us in the past. Right, this is how we respond. Go. And we might fly off the handle because we go with our emotional self, because the chimp just does not give our human side time to respond. I've got a point to this, I'm sure. So the reason I do whole self coaching is because you might find somebody that's lacking confidence now, lacks confidence because when they were at school, they were humiliated by a teacher, or they were constantly told that's not the right way to do it, or be quiet, or you wiggle around too much, or I don't know, you write in a funny way, or your dress sense isn't right. And it's all these little things that help us create our sense of self, and our lived experience impacts how we move forward. And that's what Professor Steve Peters talks about in the chimp paradox. And that's why it's really important to understand somebody's history and how they got there, and why they have the belief system that they have, and how that belief system is impacting who they are and the way that they respond to things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So this will be probably really difficult for you because you're running your own business, you're a coach, you can kind of change anything that you want to change, and then your main job is change. You change people and change work and organizations by extension. But yeah, if you could change any three things about your work, what might you change?
I would like to see more regulation within the coaching industry so that people, well-meaning, who want to upskill themselves don't get ripped off by internet charlatans. That's the first thing. And somebody that I was speaking to earlier in the week had paid hundreds of pounds for a CV review, and I got zero value from that, and I think that's criminal. And I think the same goes with coaching. Coaching done wrong can lead to all sorts of issues, and it's a rip-off and it's a waste of money. That's not to say there aren't some brilliant coaches out there that have been doing it for years and haven't got qualifications. I'm not hating on people. It's just I would prefer to see a coach at least be part of a governing body such as the ICF or the EMCC, because at least they're doing quality supervision and learning continuously. It's important.
And also, if you're reading a testimonial, go and ask the person and see if they're real. Like, don't just read something that's like, John Smith said it was great and Jane Doe says it's wonderful.
Well, it's tricky in coaching though, because quite often your testimonials have to be confidential because some people find it too exposing. But you do make a good point. So I had a coach approach me via a message on LinkedIn probably about 6 months ago now, offering to coach me. And she had over 20 years experience in corporate environments, blah, blah, blah. When I actually looked at her profile, which is a bit of sport of mine, I could see she'd left university about 6 years ago. So I'm not sure how she fit in 20 years of corporate in that time. So I guess the message is, do your research and ask questions. So if you do think, they're a good fit for you, great. But ask questions, what code of ethics do you follow? What qualifications do you have? How will you help me on this coaching journey? What's your role in it? What kind of contract will we have? Just simple things like that, and you'll very quickly flush out somebody that, is what I would call an internet coach. That's the first thing. Second thing, if I could change anything, it'd be to suddenly make me much better and more comfortable with sales, because as we've touched on, I absolutely hate it. And then the third thing would be for me not to have to do my own IT, because for anybody that's ever worked with me in corporate, I'm rubbish IT. I mean, I am doing it, but I absolutely hate doing it. So yeah, they're the three things.
Excellent. I ask this to people sometimes. So say you got really busy, you had enough demand that you could put your prices up to a nice level, and you could command that. You're taking on a hire, you get to that point, and you might, because you're a limited company, you have that scope to expand. So potentially you could hire a few people, but, I don't know how you're thinking about this yet. But my question is, who would be your first hire? If you could hire someone, or if you could clone yourself to do another role, it depends on what that role is that you think needs doing, but who would be your first hire?
So for me, it would have to be somebody like a virtual assistant. And that is because I hate admin. I've got an accountant, but just keeping on top of the bookkeeping, arranging and organising my diary, that would alleviate so much stress for me, because as I mentioned a few times, I'm dyslexic. I forget things. I will make a note, I've just remembered that I've not sent you my my photo yet. I said I'd send you yesterday.
Well, you've reminded me that I'm supposed to take snapshots when we're doing recordings, so I have to do that. Remind me later. Go on, sorry.
So that's a classic example of me forgetting something. So I think having somebody just to organise me a little bit more and respond to emails a bit quicker than I sometimes do would probably be the first hire. But I'm not really looking to hire right now. I think I'm doing coaching because I get fulfillment from the coaching itself. So I wouldn't necessarily want somebody else to do that. That being said, there are lots of coaches that I'm connected with who they use affiliate coaches. So they might win a contract with a corporate where there's lots of people to coach. And in reality, because they're ethical coaches, then if there's a group of 8, they're not likely to be able to work well with all 8 of those people. So that's where an affiliate coach would come in. He might be a better match for that individual.
Yeah.
So it's quite common for coaches to use affiliates. And that is something that I would consider if I won a contract that I couldn't fulfill myself.
So last question is on universal basic income. If there was a universal basic income, how might that change things for you? Do you think it would have helped you setting up? Do you think it'd help you in general? Do you think more people could access you? Or do you think it's just like, that's stupid, it's not going to work? No one's going to do that.
I think the reality is nobody would likely to do it, given what, if we're cutting back on everything else. But it would absolutely make coaching more accessible to people. And as somebody who is self-employed, I don't have any cover if I'm sick. So I think absolutely having a more stable income would absolutely help. I guess having a universal income would alleviate some of those pressures.
Yeah. So that is all of my questions. So where can people find you?
So just on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So I'm on LinkedIn as Gill Beadle, and then I've also got a website which you can either search Gill Beadle Coaching, or you can go to madel.co.uk and you'll find me there. Yeah, that's it. That's where you can find me, and at many networking events across Leeds.
Thank you again to Gill for being my guest. Thanks as always to all my guests, and thanks to you, Leeds, for being my subject. You can find Gill at linkedin.com/IN/Gillian Beadle. There's more to it, but the link is in the show notes. Or go to her website, www.madel.co.uk. Again, link in the show notes. And if you'd like to know more about GoodWork, go to www.goodwork.org.uk. If you'd like to contact me about anything working hours related, then you can email me about this show at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it is impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So try to work for peace and try to plan with kindness. Raise your voice, but reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Thanks for listening. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited, created and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Remember, Western Studios Leeds Limited when you're ready to start making your content in West Yorkshire. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds, and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Bookmark western-studios.com so you can see the latest prices, and use my contact page to drop me a message about your own podcast project or working hours at any time from anywhere. Maybe you want or need a podcast host, co-host or narrator for your podcast project. Maybe you just need another voice for one or more episodes of your show. Podcasts are so much more than gossip, book promotions and marketing for online courses. Podcasts and other audio content get your online brand out there. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to have an audiobook or video course? Want to share your learning, knowledge and expertise in your field? Want to learn, teach, or raise awareness of something general or particular? Want to improve internal comms with messages your staff might actually engage with? Or do you just want to brighten up the world with some entertaining content? Then make a podcast. If you're making your podcast within West Yorkshire, then think about making it with western-studios.com. Whatever your podcast questions or needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.